Women on a Green Mission. Follow along as two friends document their unfurling permaculture journeys.
Join our chats each week where we'll be sharing how we and others apply permaculture to our gardens and daily life.
We're no experts. We're at the start of our journey, fumbling our way to a greener life. We love your company along the way.
Hello.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
I am good. I feel like it's been so long since we've actually sat down and spoken like this. I mean, we caught up recently, but sit down and record, so good.
Yeah, we saw each other at the Northern Beaches International Permaculture Week event, which was so cool.
How much fun was that?
So good. That nursery, New Leaf, is so quirky and cute, and the owners are so lovely. So anyone around Sydney, definitely go pay a visit, but definitely worth a day trip if you're within driving distance.
Yeah. So where are they? Because they're New Leaf Nursery at Ingleside. Ingleside, yeah.
Yeah, Northern Beaches. So yeah, in around, is it Mona Vale? Is that the suburb?
I should know, because considering that we like
Terry Hills.
Whole area, but yeah, Terry Hills sort of area.
Terry Hills, they're in there. So it was beautiful. And we had a lovely breakfast and we got to talk. We met some really cool people. But yeah, we haven't recorded in a couple of weeks. It feels a bit weird.
No.
You have to excuse my voice. I think I'm coming down with something. So if I sound a bit croaky, that's why.
I need to get on some nice herbal soothing teas. I do that actually because I was recently crook, and you've just picked up the slack so much for me, and I appreciate that so much. But yeah, I was like 2 a.m. sitting up, coughing a lung up, like looking through all my herbal remedy books, going, okay, what can I put together now? Like I'm out there, like picking things in the garden at stupid o'clock in the morning just so I can try and make a tea and get on top of it. So.
Well, speaking of herbal teas, I've actually been working this week doing some harvesting for Elle. So she owns the Australian Medicinal Herbs, and she actually lives just around the corner from me. And coming into winter, probably good to give her a bit of a shout out. She's got a mullein leaf tincture. She's got a teas, lots of teas, but she does tinctures, and it's just like drops. And it's amazing for respiratory illnesses. And a lot of people post-COVID and even now that are still struggling with some of their respiratory stuff are contacting her, and the mullein leaf tincture is amazing. And she's got a whole heap of other ones, like there's a few that support women's health, like your hormonal health, and like they have adaptogens in them, and she's doing some amazing things. She's doing some videos with Weedy, so I can put those links in as well, and she's such a lovely lady. But I was over at her house harvesting the flowers and the leaves and helping her. And so, yeah, that was really fun and learning. I think she got sick of me asking questions about all of her teas and what she does.
What does that do? Tell me about that. I want to know about this.
Yeah, pretty much. But so that might be something you can stock in your little medicine cabinet, Joe.
Oh, I think I need to, absolutely. And especially, the women's health with the adaptogens, like, any women that are, my vintage that are starting to go through, perimenopause or menopause, I know you can relate. I know you understand. And I think that, anything that's natural that can help. I think, look, I'm all for natural solutions, absolutely. But even this time of life, it's like anything that can help, I don't care, throw it at me. Like, but if we can, keep it to, plant-based as much as possible, like that's just absolutely amazing. So I'm going to jump on and check that out.
Yeah. And I think like the plant-based stuff's good for like, not housekeeping, what's what I'm looking for? Like maintenance. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you take those things regularly, they're kind of to avoid getting sick and to keep in good health. And then, you might reach for those more Western kind of medicines or solutions. I think they're like, I consider them to be like emergency or crisis things. Like when you're in a crisis and you have your health and it really needs repairing, great, we have those tools. But just for maintenance and to every day kind of support yourself, I think those herbal things are really good so that you don't get to the point where you're in such poor health. They're the, preventative medicine that kind of keeps us in good health.
And I think, as you said, like that's supportive. Like it's that
Yeah.
nurturing and that supportive process
Yeah.
that's happening within your body.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a bit biased. I think my dad's a chiropractor and we grew up with herbalism, and that's kind of like my whole wheelhouse growing up. Like we didn't see doctors really unless there was a crisis, you broke your arm or you were really sick and you needed to go to hospital. But yeah, I think I'm a big believer in that for sure.
Oh, it's funny that you say that because I had the opposite experience growing up. It was like, if you sort of went, oh, I've got a bit of a headache, it's like, here, take some paracetamol, take this, take that. I'm like, no, I'll just have a drink of water and sit down. Like I'm okay. I'm just,
Mm.
even as a teen and a young adult, I was very, I don't want to take anything unless I absolutely have to. Whereas, yeah, mum and dad were, I think, just came from that. Hey, here, it fixes it. So here you go, take it. So
Mm.
yeah, when I sort of discovered, herbal medicine and that it actually does work, it's not just some, crazy hippie stuff that you do. You don't just put some leaves in a cup and drink it. That,
Mm.
um, that was like, wow, mind blowing for me. And mum and dad were just like, what is this stuff? What's going on?
Witchy medicine.
Oh,
Yeah. And like disclaimer, they've got to be good quality things. Like you can't just go to like a pharmacy and expect that the essential oils they sell or the stuff they sell is going to be really high quality. Like you've got to get stuff
exactly.
that's quite high quality. It's in medicinal amounts. Paddock to plate kind of, but field to bottle kind of, making sure it is high potency and it's good and it's not just full of water to, bump it up or whatever, and some of it can be quite synthetic if you're not careful and
Yep.
do your research too. So yeah,
For sure.
if you're going to get into it, do your research.
So what else has been happening? Rain?
Rain. Oh my God. So much rain.
We
Oh,
love rain, disclaimer there. Like we do, being one of the driest, places on planet Earth,
yes.
we love the rain. But
It's because we're not set up for it's because we're not set up for the rain. Like if we had our swales in a dam or berms and we were controlling the water, awesome. That would be fine. Like I can deal with that. It's the fact that we don't have anything in place. We have no infrastructure. The grass has now died and turned to mud. We've got tradies coming and going, so they're just churning up the ground. So it's literally like we're in a pigsty. Like it's just sloppy, heavy clay that you're slipping over and falling up on your ass. Literally your ankles are sinking into the ground in places. There's a river, two rivers actually, flowing through my block that are just non-stop.
and
The
you didn't
neighbors
think that
haven't.
you had water views. Now you do.
Oh man, I got water abuse. Yeah, and all the neighbors, they're not controlling their runoff, so that's all coming onto our block. So, and like everyone's trying to be really positive, and they're like, "Oh, well, at least you know where the water is and how to manage it." And I was like, "Yeah, I knew that 3 weeks ago. Like it's been 8 weeks of non-stop rain. I've got the message. I know where the water is. I don't need any more of it."
Yeah. The
But
observation
yeah,
for that
and even my
now
plants.
done.
Yeah, and even the plants, like they were thriving at first and now they're all yellowing because I just think everything's being leached from the soil. All my seedlings are starting to yellow. Like I need to get some nitrogen and some, NPK stuff in there because they're just sad. They've got no nutrition. The water's just flowing through them and taking it all out. And
And they're probably
so
getting
yeah,
a bit waterlogged as well. Like there's probably
oh
not
yeah,
a huge amount of oxygen around those little baby roots at the moment. So
true, true.
did you plant them up on mounds or
So some of it is like the stuff I've planted in the ground is in raised beds. So at least
Mhm.
that's not, it's
Oh,
got
that's good.
logs and the hugelkultur in it. So that would be draining quite well. And then underneath everything, I've also put black chips. So that should be able to, help with that. But more the stuff that's in seed trays. I think
Yeah.
that's probably the stuff that's getting waterlogged. And a lot of it I've planted in like compost. And you can tell that's getting quite, compacted. So I think I'll pot it all up again today when the rain stops, and I'm thinking about just getting something to mix through it to aerate it a little bit, like just lighten the soil up in my
Mhm.
potting trays. And yes, Elle and I were talking about doing some LAB and she did a course in coughs. She's going to pass the name on of the guy she did it with. The guy that does calcium, instead of like crushing up eggshells and just putting it in the garden, he does the eggs crushed up with some vinegar, and you can apply it as a foliar spray.
Yep.
So she did a
brings out
course
the
and she's
calcium
going to,
carbonate out of the eggs. Yeah.
yeah, and it's more bioavailable, whereas if you put it just crushed up, obviously it has to break down first. So we've been still doing the eggs in the big garden beds, because by the time the roots get there, it will be available. But she's kind of giving me a few little remedies and things to start doing, and she's going to give me some of her LAB. She's got a massive tub of it, like a big liter tub of it. So she's like, I'll give me some of that. And
for anyone who doesn't know what LAB is, could you just do a really sort of quick cliff note on that?
Yeah, well, if you want to learn how to do it and like learn all about it, Weedy actually has a really good video in how he made it and everything. But essentially, it's lactobacillus bacteria that you make like a liquid out of. So you get your rice and you get all the starchy water from the rice. You can still cook with the rice. And then you add milk to it, and the milk separates into curds and whey, and then all the milk feeds the bacteria essentially. So you make this bacteria, and then you can then use it as a foliar spray. It's really good for rust on your alliums. It's just good for general plant health. It's good for keeping, all those good things happening in the soil. So yeah, it's like an all-rounder kind of spray that you can use.
Like a tonic, isn't it? Like a tonic for the soil and for the plants. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I want to make some of that, or I'll still L's until I can be bothered making it, because I think it's a bit of a couple weeks process that you go through to get it. But yeah, I need to kind of get some of these amendments in my soil, because my plants, my seedlings are a little bit sad.
They're looking sad.
But I was telling Joe too, my garlic was just not sprouting, and I was panicking. I've got a few sprouts.
Oh,
good. I've got a few sprouts now, so hopefully it hasn't rotted in this rain, and it's warm enough that they're germinating or sprouting, whatever the garlic does. But apparently the elephant garlic is a lot slower. Like it can be weeks before they come up. So I'm not panicking yet. I haven't lost my crop yet.
I think when I haven't done elephant garlic this year, but I have in past years.
Because my little purple stripy one
being slower. There you go.
Well, I've planted them side by side. So my purple stripy one, more of those have definitely sprouted, and I've only got one of my elephants that have got a tiny little shoot coming up. So hopefully they still just need a bit more sun and heat, and the
rain can just stop and give them a chance to actually do their thing. Yeah.
So I'd like them to get a bit bigger before our cold snap hits, but we'll see.
Yeah.
What about you?
We're saying wet. We're just wet. We're just wet. And you might even hear it in the recording today. I'm sitting in the office, it's got a tin roof, and it's just going from raining hard to raining harder. And I feel really sorry for my husband, Anthony, who's out there going to be unloading the horse feed into the shed for me this morning. So, he's going to be slopping around in mud. And we're the same. It's just, especially up in front of the stables where the horses have churned up the ground. And unfortunately, when you've got hooved animals, they are not kind to the soil. So, we are missing a lot of topsoil up there, and it's just greasy, slippery, horrible clay. And you've got to wear either gum boots or work boots. Like, we've got our farm shoes, we call them, our just cheap plastic Crocs that we've had for forever. That's the only good thing about them is it's not that they're cheap or that they're plastic. They're just gonna they will be something that we will pass down to generations. But they're so slippery. Like I went arse over recently. Like I was up there feeding and just slid and just fell down on my backside. Just kept sliding down the hill. Horses looking at me going, like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, oh, I'm just covered in mud now. It was in my hair. It was everywhere. But the only thing that was hurt was my pride. Thank God no one saw it. But we've had we've had obviously quite a bit of rain. But we got our kitchen garden in, which is really, really good. So our kitchen garden is essentially around, it's on top of our retaining wall, which goes around sort of about a third of our house, and sort of an entertaining deck that we've got in the garden. We got a heap of brassicas in. So we've got well over 40 brassicas combination of cabbages and broccolis and collies, and I don't think we put any kale in. I know kale is amazing. I'm not a huge kale fan.
Oh, I
Um,
love it.
oh,
But only not the curly leaf one. I don't like that. I like the Russian,
the Russian
like
one,
more
yeah.
smooth. Yeah, I like that.
I do want to plant some because we do eat it. We do eat it. It's just probably not my go-to.
Mm.
But we got Brussels in as well. So they were a little bit late. So we'll see how we go with those. And we've got seedlings coming through as well. But we've got Asian greens in. We've planted a ton of land cress around it to act as a bit of a trap crop for moth and butterfly. But they're all netted at the moment anyway, and they're just going absolutely gangbusters. And because even though it's so wet, because it's up on the retaining wall, we do get a lot of drainage as well. So
Mm.
yeah, they're looking so good at the moment. And yeah, garlic's coming on super strong. And I've just planted store-bought garlic this year. I was late with getting my garlic. And I just went, you know what? Let's just give it a crack. Everyone was pretty much sold out by the time I was ready to buy because I was so late. And I thought, well, I'm just going to plant store-bought garlic. It was Australian garlic. Unfortunately, it wasn't from a market or anything like that. It was just from the supermarket. So,
Mm.
I don't know if it's organic. Highly likely not, which is a bummer. But I went, you know what? It's Aussie garlic. I'm just going to give it a crack. And they are honestly growing the strongest out of anything that I've grown. So
Wow.
they're doing well. So yeah, done some refurbing on the rest of the bed, saved some what did I transplant? Some Malabar spinach, um, raspberry sorrel, eggplants. So these were all in old garden beds that I had now then turned into basically the salad bar for the chickens and the ducks. And of
Yeah.
course, once you give it some moisture and some love again, everything just went and came back up. So I took those out and replanted those up, and they're all just going gangbusters. And yeah, the snow peas are coming on. I'm so keen for those. Got a heap of rocket, and onions are coming through, and leek and beetroot. We've got heaps. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's still an absolute mess. Like, our garden beds are not picture worthy in the fact that they're all beautifully organized and laid out. It's like everything's mixed in with everything else. But you know what? That's how we garden. That's how we love to do it. And I think the benefits of doing that as well from a pest management or pest confusion perspective,
Yeah.
from a nutrient perspective. I mean, we've got potatoes from last year popping up through the middle of our garlic, through the middle of our onions, like, breaking all the rules because, we've got families coming up next to each other that shouldn't be, like if you look at any of the books or the literature out there, it's like, no, don't plant these two things together. Then one will die and it'll be terrible. You'll have terrible results. Everything is just loving on each other so hard in the garden. And I'm just like, hey, I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to let you do your thing. Like, you know
More
better.
is more.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know what you're doing better than what I know. Who am I to say, no, you can't grow there? You came up, the garlic's happy, the onion's happy, the potato's happy. Yeah, let
Yeah,
them
we'll
go.
see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm really keen. I've been sort of, making notes on, when things have popped up and how they're looking. And I should actually be taking some photos or videos of it to have that record for future years.
Mm.
But yeah, I've definitely been noting it down, which is good.
Mm.
Yes.
And so this week we speak to Amanda Perris.
Yes.
She is the head honcho of the Australian homesteading communities. What is it? Australian
Homesteading
community? Yeah, on
community.
Facebook. And she's so lovely. She has created the most wonderful Facebook group.
Oh, isn't it?
Everybody is so kind and considerate. There's none of this, annoying comments and narkiness. It's just such a good space and positive vibes. She's got her own YouTube, Rockpile Homestead, as well. I don't think they're that active on there at the moment. And she podcasts as well. So yeah, she was super cool to talk to. She's over in WA, so a bit different from what the climate that we're used to, and different perspective, which was really nice.
And
It was your
I love
favorite bit.
the chat around the community as well.
Mm.
Because yeah, I really, I suppose, want to push that point that it is such a great community that she's created. It is a really safe space. No bullshit is tolerated at all. It's like if someone's being nasty or narky, or even if the tone could potentially be slightly off, there's a tap on the shoulder to say, hey, that's not okay. That could have been taken. But there's still a space to have honest conversations and honest, robust discussions, as long as it's respectful. And I love that, because there's so many groups out there that if you ask a question, and I'm sure everyone's experienced this, it's almost like this pile on of, you're an idiot, you should know, you should blah, 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 blah. And like, I found that a lot of the regen farming like groups are like that. Some of the gardening groups are like that as well. So, it's this sort of attack that happens, whereas Amanda's group is she's super active in there, and it's almost even though she moderates the group, it's a self-moderating group. Like, people, sort of say, hey, that's not okay, and then it's a respectful discussion that comes from that. And I love that, because it means that you can have really open, honest conversations in there.
Yeah, I mean, there was one post that someone was like, hey, like, don't hate on me, but we're processing our first, I think it was chickens. She's like, but I don't want to do it. Like, how do I do this? And Amanda was in there straight away being like, hey, guys, like, just be considerate, and like put up a little comment about it. But everybody was so positive. Actually, I don't think it was chickens. I think it was like a cute animal, like a sheep or something like that. And everyone was like, no, like, you can get a butcher in, and so much good advice. And so, yeah, it's a really great place to be. Come and join, unless you like drama, then you can F off.
Yeah,
But
exactly. I'll find one of those other groups to go and be a stirrer in.
Mole.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so we talked to her this week. So without further chat, we'll get into our chat with Amanda. You're listening to the Practical Permaculture Podcast with Elise Gallagher and Jo Flipham.
Hi, Lise.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. This week we're joined by Amanda. How are you, Amanda?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. Before we get too far into it, we'll just acknowledge where we're recording on. So where are we here, Jo?
So we are in the Hunter Valley, so we are on Wanneroo country.
And what about you, Amanda?
We are in York, so we are on Balladong country.
So how far down is that in WA?
It is east of Perth, about an hour or so. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it is, and Perth is considered in the southwest.
Right, okay. And so
Ish.
you don't get any cooling breezes from the ocean or anything that far
No.
It's funny when you say, we're east of Perth, and I go, oh yeah, east, so you're on the coast.
Yeah,
and I'm like, no, I'm around. How long have you been out there?
We have been on this property since 2020. And then even before then, we had a smaller property that was still on the eastern edge of Perth. So yeah, we've been kind of rural and semi-rural for 15, no, longer than that, 18 years maybe. Yeah, a long time now.
Okay. So I've been doing it a while. And so this property that you're on now is Rockpile Off-Grid Homestead.
That's right.
Yep.
So Rockpile is the name, and we're off-grid, and we identify as a homestead. So yeah, we kind of just smushed it all together, and that's what we ended up with.
Yeah. And are you guys aren't full-time like farming there, are you?
No. So I guess that's where the homesteading part comes in, that it's more about producing for our own needs, and perhaps having a surplus and abundance that you could share out, rather than going, okay, we're purchasing this property for the intention of creating like a farming income. Although we want to integrate larger stock elements down the track, it's not at the scale that some of the other farmers around here do, because we're right smack in the middle of a big kind of broad acre farming region. So yeah, there's quite a few people around here with hundreds and thousands of acres that are doing big crops of canola and running sheep and wheat, and we're in the wheat belt. So
So what made you go from smaller acreage to a larger lot size?
Yeah, I think that one, we wanted to move further out of Perth because even though we're on the outskirts, suburbia was really encroaching, and we're like, we just want to get further out. When we first moved there, kind of 13 years prior, it was really like a little bit more out in the boondocks, and it was this point where we were actually transitioning to this idea of self-sufficiency and sustainability, and we're exploring all these different things, and we wanted the option to have the space to do things with animals, rotational grazing, and like all this stuff, right? And yeah, we're on 5 acres, but you can't like support like large animals or like a decent amount of large animals on that amount of land. We did have some cows for a bit that were kind of lawnmowers, and they were great on the property, but yeah, we ran out of like feed on the property, like just their natural grazing, very quickly in a matter of months, and that was a good kind of learning point for us to go, okay, we're starting to understand like how much land you need to support, whatever system you've got in place. So we're on 100 acres. We didn't initially intend to go to that extent. We were just looking for something a bit bigger, like 20 to 50. But we ended up here.
You're not going to say no to an extra few acres, right?
Well, yeah, it was this moment where we're like looking for properties, and this one kept on coming up, and we kept going, no, it's 100 acres, too big. We don't want 100 acres. And then there was just one day we're like, maybe we should just go see what 100 acres looks like. We have no concept of really the space and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, so we came and visited with the real estate agent, and it was just this perfect kind of winter's day. And over here in WA, like blue skies, sun shining, everything was green, and it was just a glorious, perfect day. And yeah, we kind of fell in love with the property, and it's like, oh dear. I guess it's
the universe saw you coming and went, right, let's just turn it on and make everything look awesome. Yep. Yeah. We had the same moment. Yeah. We're only on 6.5 here, but yeah, we were hesitant about coming to look because the house was run down, the shed needed, like everything needed work. And yeah, we walked in and then it was like, moment. We went, shit, like we're here now, we need to buy this. Yeah.
And so what got you interested in that sustainable living and wanting to be self-sufficient, and like what led you down that path? Was it like a slow burn or a moment in your life that, made you go down that path?
Yeah, that's a good question. My husband and I are tradies, it's wall and ceiling fixers by trade. And we were both working in the trade, and it's a lot of hard work, heavy on the body, long hours. We were already living on the outskirts of Perth, so we were driving, like spending a lot of time in the car. It was wearing us down, kind of physically and like mentally, emotionally. And we're just like, what are we doing? Like, is this it? Like, we're working so hard to like pay for like all this house that we hardly ever get to live in, filled with stuff that, we hardly ever use or are packed away in boxes or something like that. And it was just this kind of bizarre moment. We're like, what is this? Is this it? Is this what we're supposed to be doing here? And it didn't feel like this was something that was sustainable, like into the future. So it was a bit of a mindset shift that happened over a period of time. I would say maybe a slow burn, where we started looking at our spending, like our consumer habits. You have this. I was doing a declutter, and I was pulling things out of boxes that had been tucked away in boxes, going, maybe I can give this to the op shop, what have you. And I'm pulling out these things that cost like a decent amount of money at the time. Like, yes, some things might be $10, but there's something that might be worth a couple of $100. I'm like, these are just like, at the time, like I really wanted it, like that desire to acquire, get that instant gratification. And then it wasn't sustained. It was just stuff, that I put away in a box. I'm like, this, that was an element that just made us realize, let's have a look at what we're spending money on and be a lot more intentional about it. And I think once you start reflecting on your, like, that consumer type stuff, it's like, well, what's the alternative? The alternative is reducing or eliminating your consumer habits, but also you can replace them with doing stuff yourself.
Yeah.
Growing your own food, preserving your food, making things at home, like making laundry detergents, and even cooking food from scratch instead of going out to dinner or buying takeaway or anything like that. So it was kind of this logical progression. And YouTube was really big for us. We were like consuming a lot of YouTube, seeing what other people are doing. Like, there must be other people that are having these thoughts. And it's funny because that's when we started coming across people like Jeff Lawton, who is kind of this, gateway into that world. It's for people that have no idea about it. It's probably their first contact, and it's like you have that moment, right, where you're seeing examples of permaculture working, and you're like, everybody should be doing this. Like, why isn't everybody doing this? It makes so much sense, So, and then we started looking around our own land and going, where does the water flow over our property? And we became aware of how much water was like coming through and leaving the property. And from that, we just, found, other self-sufficient channels and homesteaders. And we're like, we could do that. We could do this. And and the plans started forming. And I think there was just a point where we kind of felt like that we wanted like a bigger property and a smaller house, because the young fella had moved out and we were in this massive house that we had built, owner built, and paying a mortgage on it and the property. And we're like, we don't need a house this big. So we wanted more land, smaller house, and that's where it that was that transition point. So it was over a few years. So maybe slow burn, but it felt like that switch from consumerism to there must be a different way of doing this. There must be a better way. And once we had made that mental shift, it's like a whole world opened up in front of us, a whole world of possibilities.
Yeah, I think that's the main feedback we've gotten from talking to people, that either they get into it because of a health reason, like their health wasn't great, they wanted to kind of improve the food they were eating, or just that change of lifestyle and money, and just that idea of we can do so much more with so less, and why are we just kind of falling into that trap of spending and buying and consuming. So I think it's definitely a common experience that people face when they kind of start looking at different ways of living and lifestyles, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So for you, I suppose now where you're at, because I would imagine that going through that process and going from 5 acres to 100 acres would have come with a few unique challenges. What are you sort of are facing at the moment?
I'm guessing rocks, because it's called Rockpile.
Yes, a lot of rocks, a lot of rock picking. Okay, so one of our challenges is that when we sold our previous place and moved here, that actually sold super fast. So we ended up here, and it was a vacant block. So we still had to build our house and all the infrastructure and that sort of stuff. We did have a shed here that we had built before we moved here, but that had all our house in it, right? So the first challenge, I guess, is setting up the infrastructure. And I think that, sometimes when people are maybe moving to a place that already has some infrastructure in place, they're kind of a few steps ahead. So it's a challenge in one respect. In the other respect, though, we were able to design how everything is positioned in a way that suits our life. We're not we're not permaculturalists, as in we haven't like done the permaculture design course, or it's not something that is practiced in like every single element of our homestead. But one element that always resonated with us is this idea around like starting like with your home zone and thinking about how the zones, and thinking about how you're going to be moving around the property, the places that you're going to be frequently going to,
your flow, how you sort of flow through and move through.
Yes. Yeah, that's right, because it just makes everything so much easier to do. You're not forgetting about something that you need to go to and manage every day, because it's in a completely opposite direction than what you do every morning. And it's so I have my morning chores, which is going from the house down to the chickens, looking after them, looping back around through the veggie garden, and it's just a flow, like you're saying. So so it's a challenge coming to a place without any infrastructure. But there are there's kind of advantages to that as well. And the time it's taken to build the infrastructure as well, I feel like has not set us back. I mean, it's all part of the journey, but there's sometimes where you just go, I just want to like do this thing, but we need to have this set up first. So maybe that. Yeah.
And I love that you share that, because and framed it up that way, because I think a lot of people, when they are thinking about whether they're moving from, say, like a residential block to 5 acres or 5 to 100 or whatever, sometimes those challenges can become a little bit bigger in your head than what they actually need to be, as opposed to let's just get going and face, plan ahead. Absolutely, you need to, but face the challenges as we face them, and be able to take the positives out of those, and what can we learn from this experience, and what can this experience actually give back to us. Like you said, you were able to design exactly what you wanted, and that was such a huge bonus, as opposed to trying to modify something that was already there. So I really love the way that you framed that.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm someone that if I can't see it, I kind of forget it's there. So I can look out my kitchen or walk out the doors onto my deck, and we're overlooking the orchard and the veggie patch, and overlooking where the chickens are. So these are things that I'm interacting with every day, and I don't want to kind of forget them there, because they're out of sight, out of mind, sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's also an effort thing too. Like if you can take the scraps, feed the chickens, collect what you need for breakfast along the way, and it's less effortful, then A, you're going to do it, but B, it just gives you time back when you actually set things up right. Like if your compost is in the right place to be used in your garden, rather than at the back of your block where you're going to have to ferry it back and forth, you're saving yourself hours in the long run. So I think that's really important when you think about places, and to time save and to make things more efficient, not just it being in front of you so you remember, but also the efficiency of your setup. So
with that then too, I want to sort of feed into the permaculture side of things. So as you said, you're not a permaculturalist, and I mean, look, we're only we're new permies, we're brand new, we've done the course, but we're still muddling our way through, and having some really big lessons along the way that we're learning, which is fantastic. And so, you said that you utilize obviously the zones, the flow, so the pattern and the way you move through your property. Are there other things that are specifically permaculture that you sort of went, yes, this is what I want to take and be able to apply?
Yeah. So the act of observation is something that is such an overlooked aspect of any other system that I've looked at apart from permaculture. And people say, oh yeah, it's important to watch and see what you need to do, but that intentional observation has been really critical for us, because we're moving to, even though we're probably a couple of hours away from where we were previously, but it's it's almost like a completely different climate. And it's the climate's got a lot of challenges. like how the water moves is a lot different. Our block is very steep and rocky, and so that element there is definitely, we were lucky enough to have like a gap between when we purchased it and when we actually moved here, like a couple of years. So we were coming here frequently and we were able to see it in all the seasons and that sort of thing. So it was, that was an element that I feel is, almost uniquely permaculture. And then we did like a swale project, which was a lot of fun, and it was like a decent size swale project. We've got an excavator, although we marked it out with like an A-frame. We made an A-frame, marked it out with an A-frame. We do have like laser levels and stuff, but we dug it with an excavator. It was, learning how to do a level sill. We stuffed that up the first time. We had to like redo it. I really wanted to learn more about like native nitrogen fixers. So that was like a big research thing around that. Learnt that we actually have a lot of native nitrogen fixers, because I didn't want to necessarily introduce something at pest levels to our environment. Learning about cover crop seeds and so that was an actual physical project that we applied, with the hopes of like doing more of that around the land. We've been living here for a few years now and we're still learning stuff, different seasons are different. So
there's always, every time you think you've got a handle on something, Mother Nature comes along and says, no, you can have this one now, and you can learn about this.
What we always really loved with this idea about the food forests, right? We've got a veggie patch, but we've got a big area which we're going to try to integrate into like an edible garden, and we'll have like a dedicated area that will just flow into more of like the food forest structure. So that's something that we're working on building up, and we've got like another section that we kind of want to do like a native food forest. So there's a lot of research, and it builds up over time, and learning about guilds and this and that and this tree and this level of the forest sort of thing, and working out things that working in our climate as well. So that is.
Ask that. What is your climate there?
So we are like semi-arid. Sometimes it might be called inland Mediterranean, but it's it's very hot, dry summers and cool, wet winters, basically. So
what's your water security like there then, when you have to kind of push back your winter water supply all the way through winter again? Is that a challenge?
It is tricky, actually. We have like rain events, so we will have like a lot of our rain in kind of a few rains, like especially at the end of summer, going into autumn. We haven't had any of those yet, but we can have them as early as February, March. And at that stage, it's tricky because the ground is so parched, right? And if we have a big rain event, it doesn't soak in, and it's just sheeting across the surface. And you can see it just washing away like this dried out, soil, basically. And it's like just washing it away. Bye. Bye, soil. So, kind of trying to manage that is a bit of a challenge. And then we have like the heat, the 40 pluses, but then we also get down to like -5. So we're kind of
extreme.
It is pretty extreme. So, that's at those extremes, like, middle of winter, middle of summer, autumn and spring here are beautiful. But yeah. So arid, semi-arid, sort of dry lands type situation.
Yeah.
And the water isn't, I think it's like maybe 500 mils a year, so it's not a lot. And honestly, that is something that we maybe didn't do as much of our due diligence as we should have, like, because we fell in love with the property and we just thought, okay, yeah, we'll have like tanks, we'll have water tanks, we'll be able to like capture water, rainwater, what have you. But we only discovered once we got here that we actually had a really good quality bore sunk down, and I don't think that we would be able to have what we have here with the option to expand to more animals if we didn't have access to that sort of water, especially in like early in your systems where you don't have ways of like, you know, capturing the water and like sinking it down and slowing it down. Water is so critical.
And your top layers and yeah.
What other influences do you have on your garden besides permaculture? Is there anything else that you guys really resonate with?
We have done some other projects just out on the land in the waterways. We've done some leaky weirs, which I think is from is it natural sequence farming? And we are interested in like regenerative agricultural principles, like around rotational grazing. So which we haven't applied in any significant way yet. So those just kind of a melding of stuff is, you know, you just see something, you go, oh, I'd like to try that. So so there's a few people, I probably should have written them all down. So there's like a few people, I try to look for people that are doing things in the more arid, dry lands type climate. So just go, will that be able to like help us with how we manage our water? And it often comes down to just, you know, helping us like make the most of the rain that we do get. I mean, as for like gardens and veggie gardens, I'm personally a bit of I like an unruly garden. So I've got a friend up the north of Western Australia that runs a community garden, and she's big into permaculture. And she kind of comes down and visits Perth a number of times, and she's kind of popped into my garden with me, and she's very, very big on interplanting and just like letting things go wild. So yeah, it helps to have, you know, a gardening buddy that is also likes a bit of an unruly veggie garden. I kind of like it.
When you were doing all your research for your homestead and watching all the YouTube channels, who were you kind of your favourites that you kind of watched regularly to get some inspo from?
Oh boy. So it's actually quite a while ago now.
Sorry, making you remember.
That's right. And you kind of change, like over time, you kind of your tastes evolve. But yeah, there was definitely like we really did watch so much Jeff Lawton, and anything that was like kind of linked to him, like what the YouTube algorithm would deliver us after we watched his. I'm pretty sure we watched quite a bit of like Mark from Self-Sufficient Me. There wasn't like heaps of like permaculture stuff on YouTube. It was mainly Jeff. And then we kind of got led down the path of the homesteading, but most of the content on there was from the US, which is why we want to start a YouTube channel so we could show it from the Australian perspective, because we would struggle to find like Australian examples of homesteading. So things like Jess from Roots and Refuge Farm. There was this one guy called Homesteadonomics, and he actually applied permaculture principles as well. He was very precise with his projects, and he was in like a desert type environment. So watched a lot of Grand Designs.
I love Grand Designs. I love them so much.
You know, and when you're planning your own house, and this is so far from a Grand Design's house. It's like 100 square meters. It's like a cottage. But it was just, yeah, I think that is really inspiring to think outside the box, because they quite often have ones that, are pushing the boundaries on like sourcing materials and low VOC and sustainability and that sort of stuff. And at the same time, also, they had two programs come out, the River Cottage Australia, and also the Gourmet Farmer.
Yep.
So we've watched those TV series like a lot of times, and even watching like the Australian River Cottage now, like I'm struck by how like honest he was about like having this self-sustaining like small farm, or whatever he called it himself, and processing your own food, and raising chickens that you then dispatch, and all those sort of elements like this, like
that it's not just a
building
romantic
out
notion. There's hard stuff that you've got to do in there as well. And
yeah. I mean, it was a produced show, but he was doing like real stuff that now we do on our property.
And is the aim to be totally self-sufficient, or self-sufficient in your food? Like, where do you kind of see that vision more long-term for your property?
I think it is being as self-sufficient as possible without getting too obsessed about it. Because there's also this element of community sufficiency, which is important as well. And I mean, we kind of did want to just run away to our property and hide in our cave, but it's important to retain those connections. You can't always do everything yourself. Actually, I don't think anyone can do everything themselves. I don't know if 100% self-sufficiency is realistic, or even should be something that's desired. Because you will, there'll be some things that you grow in abundance, and once you've eaten your fill and preserved it and fed your animals, you still got stuff, that you can share that abundance, like with your community, do seed shares and plant swaps and that sort of thing. So that was something that we kind of evolved into a little bit more.
That connection perspective and community and knowledge sharing perspective. If you're, living in your cave, then that's not transpiring across.
Well, that story Brett told us, this farmer guy, bought some land and did it all myself, him and his wife up on a hill doing his own thing, rolled his tractor and broke both of his legs. And then realised, maybe the ultimate isn't, being totally self-sufficient and relying on ourselves, but having that community sufficiency and building connection. And, okay, I want to be, self-sufficient in my brought vegetables, but everything else I'm happy to trade and share and barter and have those connections in that community. And so it's interesting, because different people, I think, see self-sufficiency in such a broad way. It doesn't get talked about enough that being self-sufficiency isn't a gold standard, and how can we reframe what self-sufficiency means and is, and how can we apply it in our own context? Because I think that's really important. Like, you're not going to be self-sufficient even in an urban area, because you can't milk your own bloody cow on, 50 meters squared. Well, you know what I mean? Like,
you haven't got your cows and your pigs out on your patio.
So I think it's important to kind of highlight, because I think for a lot of people it is the dream or the goal to be self-sufficient, and until you kind of really think about it, or start trying to practice it, it isn't what you think it is. Or I think about it's very through rose-colored glasses.
It's romanticized.
That's true. And I like how you say that it shouldn't be the gold standard. And the fact that until you're actually trying to do it, you're like, okay, then maybe this isn't the ultimate goal. Like, it's this journey that includes working towards that, but and it also kind of excludes the people that don't have the resources or the capacity to be fully self-sufficient, and just going, oh, you're not doing it enough, so then that's not real. What you're doing isn't as true or important, or as I'm doing because I'm doing it more, and it's I hate that kind of thing. If someone in an urban area wants to be self-sufficient in, they just want to make their own soap instead of buying it, that's
okay.
They shouldn't have to feel like, well, I can't do it enough to this level, so I won't do anything at all. And that's the trouble, right?
Enough. And I got this from Future Steading, where they talk about, what's your enough. And when I first heard that, I was just like, it was almost like, someone slapped me in the middle of my forehead and went, well, duh, of course. What is your enough? And it goes back to that consumerism that you were talking about earlier. I've got all this stuff because I don't have enough, and it's the newest fandangle thing that I need in my life right now. But it's, okay, what is enough? And for some people, making soap, that is enough. And that is okay. I've got a girlfriend of mine who, she said, I don't want to be doing any more courses because I've got it. It's not that I know it all. I'm just not at the stage in my life right now that I can take on more knowledge. I have enough. I just want to embed it. I just want to apply it, and I want to make those small changes. I don't need to keep going out and obtaining knowledge through courses or extra books or things. I've got enough now. Let me just embed that. And that's okay. And she said, sometimes I sort of feel like, maybe I should be doing more because society says that I should keep educating, I should keep learning. But really, she's learning as she goes anyway with just applying what is her enough.
And it's funny, so many people that we ask to interview, they're like, oh, we're not really permaculturists. We don't do that. And I was like, but I love that. I think subscribing to any one dogma is dangerous. And that's when you have this, like you said, this separation of not haves and have-nots, but the people who hold the knowledge and the people who don't. And, we talk about it in this way that, that's not very permaculture. You practice permaculture, but then you don't recycle. So, you can't play with us. I hate that mentality that people have. I think if you're doing something and your intention's good, then good on you.
Exactly.
That's fine. You don't have to be...
Take what works for you.
A Buddhist permaculturist to practice permaculture.
You don't have to be perfect.
Yeah. And you don't have to do it all.
Yeah.
That's not what it's about. We don't practice a lot of social permaculture, really. Permaculture for us has started in gardening.
Yeah, and that was our gateway.
There's so much to permaculture that we aren't doing.
Yeah.
And we don't call ourselves permaculturalists. We just like permaculture and the principles.
We apply the principles to the best of our ability of where we're at today. Tomorrow could be different.
Yeah.
The season of life that you're in. I have small kids. There's things that you can do that I can't.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be anything wrong with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And the whole gatekeeping thing, right? That the whole point of gates is to keep people out. Why would you do that if you're passionate about a system or a methodology, You want to be what would be the motivation?
Sharing it out and bringing people in and, almost to the point where people say, okay, that's enough. That's enough now. You've spoken about it enough.
You're everywhere. You're everywhere right now. So are you guys still working traditional 9-to-5 jobs, or what's kind of your situation over there?
Okay, so we no longer do our trade. We bought a property kind of close enough to Perth that if we wanted to, we could commute. We did that for maybe a couple of months, and we're like, yeah, we don't like this. Because we just wanted to be on our property, right? But we had started because this was a long-term plan. We had started planning. I did in particular. I also, when I was a ceiling fixer, I also had a part-time photography business, which I loved, which I knew I also wouldn't be able to bring here. I was a pet photographer because I love animals. I love taking photos. And I was like, okay, so what are some skills I have that will transfer into this, maybe work from home, remote, working online remotely. I mean, the word working from home wasn't a thing then, right? This is pre-pandemic. So I just analyze the different parts of my photography business that I really enjoyed and could maybe transfer onto an online business. I had skills in building websites. I used to build websites from code back in the olden days of the internet.
I love that. Before it was all plug and play. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed business and marketing and like writing marketing copy. And I was always that person that somebody would ask me to like look at their writing. Can you check this? Can you edit this? So it was just something that came really naturally to me. I'm a voracious reader, and anything to do with kind of language writing, that sort of thing. And I've discovered that there was a thing called copywriting, which is where you write the marketing copy for businesses. And I'm like, oh, I love that. I could do that. Can do that online. Don't need to do it in person. So I set about getting certified, getting training, doing stuff to learn how to do that properly as a job. And now, so that was 2019. And now it's 2024, and that's what I do for a living, essentially. So I work permanent part-time for a company in Sydney, and then on the other days I run my own business. I have like a few specialty niches in copywriting, and I work from home in my office. I wake up in the morning and do the chickens and do the veggie patch and do all that, and go for a walk and sit out on the deck, and then I wander into my office, and
what a terrible
I'm overlooking. It's perfect. So I'm working, but it's I don't have to leave. Sometimes I don't leave this property for like 2 weeks at a time. It's terrible, but sometimes, because I'm interacting with people online all day. Like I have like meetings and client calls, and now I've got the Australian Homesteaders community, and which has really connected me. So I don't feel isolated. I don't feel alone. So so that's and Corey ended up working locally. And so we're both kind of really quite flexible in our work and don't have to spend too much time away from the homestead.
Yeah. And so how did the Facebook group come about? Because it is like exploding at the moment. You've just grown so big so quickly, and big congrats, because it's an amazing resource and such a friendly place to be a part of online, which is pretty rare.
It's very rare. There's not many groups that you go into and ask a question and know that you're going to get valuable comments back, and not just a whole heap of shittygram comments that flow through. Like every time I've engaged in your group, there has been just an outpouring of really positive support and practical information, and not just waffle. Like it's been really good stuff.
It's a great group, and the people there are great, and I'm very passionate about keeping that culture. It's it gets more difficult the bigger it gets. It has exploded particularly over the last month or so. And how it came about was that, remember how I said that when we started watching YouTube, we saw mainly US channels, and we thought, oh, we haven't seen any Australian channels, we can start our own channel, which we did. But we were just really struggling to find other Aussie homesteaders on YouTube. And we're like, well, maybe just nobody else is trying to do what we're trying to do. I don't know. Where do you find people that are doing what we're doing? We were a member of some off-grid groups on Facebook, and they can be very challenging places to have any sort of valuable discussion. Let's put it that way. And we kind of just stopped producing videos on YouTube for a bit. And then we happened to come across someone called Mel, and she is from Honeybee Farmstead YouTube channel. They came to buy a tractor off us, and something must have made her ask, but she's kind of like, you guys seem like you're trying to do what we're doing, like a kind of homesteading thing. And she said, oh, we've got a YouTube channel. I'm like, oh, we've got a YouTube channel as well. We haven't actually published in a while. And so she kind of kept on us and said, start publishing videos again. And really, it was thanks to her that we started publishing videos again. And that, from that point on, like, we kind of re-entered the YouTube homesteading world, and there was so many more Aussie YouTubers, Aussie like homesteading YouTubers, and we started finding our community on YouTube of other Aussie homesteaders. But it was still slow going,
Mm-hmm.
and YouTube isn't a really great place for like interaction and discussion. It's quite one-sided, especially if you've got someone who might consume a lot of content but they don't have a channel. Like, you can't, like, they can watch you and comment on you, but you don't get to like experience them back.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted a way to be more connected with this community that I had been finding. I am a bit of an introvert, so I'm online gal, and that's kind of my thing. I'm very comfortable like talking to people online and writing and that sort of thing. In person, not my favorite thing, and like social events and that sort of stuff. And I said to you guys how we had this gradual realization that how community was important, and part of that was like Mel really connecting with us, and she's done a lot of effort to connect with other people locally. She started her own Facebook group for people locally, so she could, she's got visions of having get-togethers and seed swaps and all that sort of stuff, which is like great for her. And I'm going to like support her and go along, but like the thought of organizing something like that gives me anxiety. But the group thing, but I still wanted to find a way to connect, but like Australia wide, and there was I couldn't find the group out there that was suiting that purpose. And that was nice. I'm like, I don't want to have this like drop in my guts every time I post a question waiting for someone to write something horrible. And and then I was just going over and over these frustrations of like not having a community. The existing groups on Facebook were so like frustrating and nasty, and I'm just like, oh God, what am I going to do? And I was like, I'll just start my own group. So it was just driving home one day after Christmas, like a Boxing Day lunch or something, and I said to Corey, I said, look, I'm just going to start my own group. I'm going to make the group that I want to be a part of. And we came home, and within a couple of hours I had got a name, started the group, invited a bunch of people, and that was, and the rest was history, I guess. And it's just
just celebrated a year, like you said, just post Christmas, and it's done so well. So good on you, and it's an amazing resource.
Yeah, I think people just really, there was obviously lots of other people that really needed that as well, and so I feel very it's important to me to maintain that space, not just for me but for them as well, because otherwise it's just going to be like every other group.
How do you go with that? I'm really curious to know, how you manage the group with moderate. She's firm. Because I mean it's a big ask to control that many people and voices and opinions and inputs, and I can imagine it's a little bit like herding cats.
Yeah, maybe. Herding geese. Oh no, geese aren't that hard to herd.
Ducks are at least they're not
okay, herding ducks. All right, so I mean, part of, I guess, establishing any group culture is maintaining, like, it kind of built from the ground up, and then it becomes self-sustaining to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
So like the members of the group saw that this is how we do that here, so that is what I'm going to do. And so even if I'm not like the first person commenting on a post, I'll see other members like welcoming people or saying, oh, that's fantastic, because we've set that example early on, and I try to get into nearly every post. I don't get them all, especially now that there's so many. But I try to get in early, set the tone.
So like the members are actually, just taking up that groundswell, and they're really protective of what the culture is
Yes.
and what the
Yeah.
vibe is within the group as well, which I think is, again, when you look at it from a community perspective, you've set the bar high and everyone's just like, this is where it's at and we don't allow that to drop. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, the challenge is when we kind of have that big influx, you have the risk of kind of diluting that culture a little bit. So, you know, with how it's grown over the past month or so, I've been in there like a lot more than I usually would be. And we brought on an additional moderator and to help like get in those comments, because it's really important to manage any negativity like really early on. Like you can't just leave it there for a couple of days, because it's all the people that are reading but aren't participating. They just go, oh, this isn't a safe place to ask a question or to, you know, be vulnerable. So it's about acting quickly and decisively as well, and just go, okay, no, that's not our culture. So the tough thing is that I don't have like a really strict set of rules, because I want to. It's weird because I kind of do, but then I also want to create a space that is very inclusive, which means we might have various extremes, like people that are, you know, very pro-science and people that are very anti-government, and, you know, and sometimes they have ideologies that can clash, but I don't think that like the homesteading like area, the homesteading space has got such a diversity of people. And I didn't want to just go, all right, I just want people that do rebel canning, and I just want people that follow the like the rules of the USDA canning rules, like 100%, because then we're missing out on the lived experience of a lot of other cultures that have like immigrated to Australia, and even our history of like food preservation. So it's a little bit, can be a bit nuanced, stepping a bit of a fine line sometimes, but get that dedication to keeping it a safe space is what we primarily strive for.
Yeah. Oh, well, we're coming up on an hour mark now of chatting.
Oh goodness, that went quick, didn't it?
So
it did.
The last question we ask everyone is just, what advice would you give somebody who's starting out on this same journey that you are?
Yeah. I might go back to my point about observation, because it is like, that is the process through which you're going to make decisions about what action you're going to take. Like, it's really critical to do that first. Otherwise, you're just doing stuff and maybe not thinking through all the ramifications, and then you're going to spend a lot of time going back and kind of fixing up and retrofitting and that sort of stuff. So if someone wanted to start down the path of like, say, integrating permaculture, even if they're not permaculturalists, like, that is one principle or element of it that is really critical. And insofar as homesteading, just starting where you're at, starting small, doing what you can with what you've got. And I think that even that is a very similar like principle to a permaculture ethos as well. So which I think can map over to, you know, doing homesteading as well.
Yeah, it sure is.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Oh my God, thank you for having me.
That's okay.
Thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and
it was great.
We'll definitely be putting the links, if you're okay with that, in the show notes. So for anyone who is interested in checking you out on YouTube, and if they're interested, if they're a homesteader or a farmsteader or a permaculturalist, or even just if they're interested, they can join. Is that right? Have I got that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Yeah, because a lot of people are just dreaming. They're just dreaming of it. So, and there's space for them there as well.
Yeah, or curious. You know, I think there's a few people that have joined that I've noticed recently that are just kind of like, listen, I don't know a lot about it. And they're just kind of there. They introduce themselves, but they kind of, like you said, they just read the comments and they observe because they just want to learn more about it and what it might involve. So that's lovely. They can join too.
The more like-hearted people that come together and share what they know and ask questions that someone else may be wanting to know the answer to, but just haven't gotten around to asking it yet. I think that, that's how we disseminate that knowledge and connect with each other.
Yes. No gatekeeping of homesteading.
Definitely not. Well, Amanda, it's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know that you're an incredibly busy woman, so I really do appreciate you carving out an hour of your weekend to have a chat with us.
I really appreciate you guys having me. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Wonderful. Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Practical Permaculture podcast. Jump onto our Facebook group to keep the chat going and to look for any resources that we mentioned on today's show. Look in the show notes.
And if you liked the episode today, then subscribe. Please give us a review and share. And if you didn't, then that's okay. We'll sure you'll find the right podcast for you.
Bye.
Bye.